What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 63 of the Overview. I'm ChanManV, and joining me today is ZP from his lovely hotel room. What's up, buddy?
You know, the hotel is actually a castle from the outside.
It's a
castle? It doesn't feel
castle?
like a castle from the inside, but it is actually a castle from the outside. So, you know what? I'm just going to live that one up.
Okay, all right. You're gonna have to prove that. You're gonna have to take a picture at some point. But joining us today is our guest Morte from Team eUnited. What's up, buddy?
Hey, nothing much. We had a chill day. Not that much practice.
Oh, really? Okay. So
not today. Normally we play a lot. We did more tactics today, so.
Nice. We're gonna definitely dive into that, or at least ask you about tactics. And do you guys look at videos together and all that good stuff, or are you guys it's more of just like a circle, a round table where you guys talk about stuff?
We have codes, we record VODs, but today we mostly went over stuff like before the matches.
Mm-hmm.
Like normally we watch VODs like after the matches and see what we did wrong, but today we mostly did like stuff before the matches and then implement that in our scrims. So we had like a set plan before going in.
Nice.
So I think it's like important that you like balance those two out, that you always have like new stuff coming in. Because it's kind of with the dive, you do still kind of have to make up new stuff sometimes.
Little things, right? Of course.
Little things.
Yeah. Well, today, guys, we've got a list of things, or just a slew of things. As usual, we're going to talk about the end of the anniversary event, which will conclude tonight. So get all your loot boxes and all that good stuff, and make sure you get that. The double XP ended yesterday, but that was pretty nice. We can talk about that too. Overwatch Contenders, of course. These guys, playing, casting. We had the EU that qualifiers happened this past weekend, and group stages were announced today. So you get a chance to preview, take a look at the groups, especially Morte's group too. And then we'll catch up some with Morte just while we're talking about all that stuff. Apex Season 3, of course. There's been lists of news, lots of different things, players, a little bit of drama, and some things actually at E3 too. And then Q&A at the end. We've got 3 email questions. We actually got a slew of them this week, which was really, really awesome. So thanks everybody for doing that. And if you want to get your questions in maybe before the end of the show, go ahead and email those to theoverview@chanmanv.tv, and we will get to them as soon as we can. All right. Well, let's start off by talking about the anniversary event. So this is the last day, and actually we can talk about the double XP too, since they, the last 4 days they made that available. So anytime you played, a lot of those bonuses that you basically get double for them, which resulted in me getting like 13,000 XP every time I played, which was pretty awesome. So what do you guys think? What did you guys think about the weekend, and I don't know, maybe just generally anniversary event, Morte?
So I'm probably the pro player who plays the least ranked in the world.
What?
So it's not really something that benefited me that much. Yeah, I'm a loser player. I don't really play ranked that much. If I play ranked, I'm like playing for fun, and then people are flaming me. Like sometimes I do a queue like super serious.
Yeah.
But that was mostly when I'm like in Korea. When we were in Korea, I used to play with crews a lot, and then we would play serious, and I would just play like Zenyatta. But now I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just focusing on my Lucio, and then.
So I gotcha. Lucio on the ladder, not the most ideal place to be, trying to practice and getting better with them. ZP, how about you? You had a chance to get some of that XP this weekend?
I did get a chance to get a little bit of the XP here, even though it was less than ideal playing on a laptop and hotel internet. It was me, Hex, JCap playing there, and it was quite a bit of XP. Overall, I do think events like this are very good just for getting people back into the game where, people ebb and flow on interest. But when you tell them that they can get double the payout for their time, you're going to bring people back in. And I would say that, yes, it's an anniversary event and it brought people back in. But I do wonder if Blizzard looked at the numbers and goes, wait, a lot of people actually came back to play just because of double XP. There's part of me that thinks we might see more double XP weekends in the future just because of how successful I think this one was. So there's enough press about it that I think that it was successful. I don't know the actual numbers, but it's just a cool thing to give to people every now and then.
Yeah, I think it was good timing too, given that they got a lot of flack for just this recent loot box or the skin and emote distribution being a bit more expensive than their previous ones. So it makes up a bit. I think I saw that. Who was it? Was it Jason? It was one of the casters. Who was it? It was one of the casters that got like 50 levels, or no, you know who it was? It was Reinforced, I think. He ended up getting like 50 levels like in this 4 days, and I'm like, holy crap, dude, that's a lot of levels.
That was personified by Reinforced tweeting one of the old Tom and Jerry cartoon pictures where, Tom is putting up his eyelids with tape. Yeah. He's just like, all right, well, we just finished a tournament. Better go grind out more levels because, look, I mean, maybe at some level you look at other players and go, wow, this player's a gold border. You know what? I would like to have a gold border, and if you were making inroads on that, double XP weekend is a good time to do it.
That's true. That's true. I mean, those guys, they don't have to work for, I mean, there's not much for them to are left for them to accomplish. So the gold border is obviously that light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of them.
I need to respond to one quick thing here. I'm getting a little bit of crap from Jason Chow talking about picking Widow. The only thing I regret about picking Widow is doing it on a laptop and not doing it from a real setup. So,
Oh man. Well, overall, how did you guys fare with the anniversary event? Have you guys had to? Do you just buy loot boxes, Morte, or do you just not even care about skins and that?
I mean, we get XP from playing scrims now, so that's pretty good. So I actually get quite I think I got like maybe 50 total in this whole event.
What? Really?
I'm not.
You're talking about loot boxes? 50 total?
Yeah, probably. Good. So I got quite some legendaries, and so.
Okay.
I don't really. I'm not like the best guy to ask. Like I don't really care that much about skins. I don't really care. Like for example, I use my I pick the best emote to have the best emote in the game, so I can sit in a corner somewhere and I'm like less visible. That's like the way I think of it. So
the sitting, the sitting one's a good one, so you can hide in the bushes and things like that. No, the Lucio is a cool one though.
Down the corner, sit, watch, and then when the tank comes, boop him off the map. That's like perfect.
That's right, exactly. The Lucio one is one I really really wanted. It has like jazz music whenever you switch the songs. So that was pretty interesting to me, for me.
You just got full controversial there, ChanManV, because a lot of people hate the music swap there. Like, I like the skin a lot, and I don't mind the music swap, but there are people with very just volatile views on that Lucio skin. It's polarizing.
I don't like it either. I think it's too loud as well, like the difference, I don't know.
Oh,
also, I do like the dancing emote, because I dance a lot on the payload. Like, just whole rounds just dancing on the payload.
Yeah, Lucio's got that
tweet on the payload, because that's what you have to get up like wins.
I need to elevate to Vince's level to be able to achieve that.
All right, ZP, how about you, man? How'd you do? Did you get all the skins? And are you a collector of all of them? Are you one of those type?
Actually, at one point I was, but now I've just gotten to a point where I just save loot boxes and don't open them. Mostly because I know it triggers. I don't even understand
that. You know that the loot boxes are already established and created when you get them, right? It's not like when you open them they change or anything like that.
Oh, no, I'm fully aware. I'm not doing it for the loot. I'm doing it to just trigger anyone that walks by when I'm on that account because they see something like 60 loot boxes unopened and they go, what in the world are you doing? I actually think it causes physical pain to hexagrams anytime he views my account. So that's really why I don't open the boxes at this point.
Man, you're going to be like Crip one of these days. Crip had like 600,000 dust saved up just for this huge event. And then when he pressed the button, the game totally crashed. So you're going to be one of those people that has 100,000 loot boxes one of these days. And then you're not going to be able to open all of them. Or you're going to break the game some way. Overall, I think I didn't get all the skins. I didn't get the Genji one, which kind of sucks. But overall, I think I ended up getting all the dances, which were the most important things for me. And then... just the Lucio skin, and then there was one other skin that the Bastion skin I thought was pretty cool too. I think those two, and then God, what was the last one? There was like one other one that I really want. Oh, the Diva one. Yeah, the Diva one was the ones that I was really really wanting. So I ended up getting all the ones I wanted, but there's definitely a lot more that I could have gotten. Just didn't have enough time or didn't have the money to really throw into trying to get some more. Overall, though, I think the event went well. I think that, mission accomplished. The next event, probably the Summer Games, right? It's a couple months from now. I think that seems to be the right timing since the first one was in August. So we can expect that. And I'm eager to see like how much stuff will be added to it because the previous ones will be open too. And I still need to get the Genji.
If I remember correctly, Summer Games was the first event where you had limited time skins, so this is going back, because I remember people got really upset the first time around Summer Games where they didn't allow you to buy things with currency at all. That was before they implemented the you can buy it for 3 times the amount type system. So not only were we able to get on skins that perhaps eluded you the first time around, but there will be extra goodies, presumably. Assuming it even comes back, which you would think it would, but.
Did they say that they're gonna like can you get the skins from last year? Did they say that?
They said that last time, last year or whatever. I believe.
Yeah, I don't think the intent for a lot of the event skins is to have them be permanently unavailable, although it does make it a little bit weird. So, like, anniversary skins, like, obviously, you would think that would come back every year. Some of the other things, like the Omnic Invasion event, I wonder, like, how that gets spun, because if that's a yearly thing, does it just... I don't know. I guess there's a few ways it could work where you could get access to those skins again, because you sort of have gone on the idea here that most new skins added to Overwatch now are limited time events.
Yeah, I would, to be honest, I'd prefer if you couldn't go back and get them. You know, like that was it. Like, you know, and if you have them, and you're kind of special, right, to have all those skins. And another thing too is, like, if they do include all the old ones in the summer, then that dilutes the loot boxes for the summer games. You know, like, what if I have all the old ones and I only want the new ones? I'm going to be getting a ton of repeats. And we've already talked about how bad the repeats are for these events, because you only get 200 gold for something that costs 3,000. So, anyways, that would be much worse for me. And I kind of wish they would just add new stuff going forward.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I think it will be like skins being rare makes it more special for sure. So I think that, like, also like you have to think, like, if you think, like, let's say 2 years ahead, and then people are coming into the game, and then people have skins they've never seen before, and I think that's fun. So should just not open it up again.
Agreed. All right. Well, again, guys, it ends tonight. Get your games in, just last minute games. Try to get those loot boxes, and then we'll see what happens next. For the next event. All right, Overwatch Contenders. So that's obviously the big narrative that right now in the Overwatch space, and particularly with these two guys. And we had NA last week, the qualifiers, and then so EU qualifiers happened this past weekend, included eUnited with Morte here. So let's take a look at, I guess, the qualifying teams, and then we can get y'all's any just thoughts on how everything went this weekend. So let me show that real quick here. All right, so here are the 16 teams that qualified from the EU region. So eUnited on top. No surprise there, Morte, I guess, but you know, I was just telling.
Wait, no surprise there. That's a big surprise there. eUnited, even back to the reunited days, has always had the curse of like getting second and everything. They're the most consistent second place team. So eUnited beating Misfits convincingly, that was a surprise. And honestly, the best congratulations I can give to you, Morte, there, where I know you guys have been working at it for ages and ages. So the get over the mountain, and even if it is just seeding that was at stake here, I mean, it's still a big milestone for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, this forever second meme is not something that we actually really thought about. Like, the times we got second, we still got second in, like, getting second at Gamescom, for example, is not really a shame. It's just unfortunate. But, I mean, I don't know. It's like, yeah. I mean, it's good that at least we showed we aren't forever second and we can do it. So
it's possibly going. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we were talking earlier, this is like qualifying you for group stages, but the seedings, you know, going into this is actually really, really important. And we're about to talk about the group stages too in just a second. But yeah, this week, like, how did it feel? I mean, like, I feel like you guys have been, you know, ever since you guys had the roster change and, you know, had the actually big change, you guys have been slowly kind of climbing that mountain and really, you know, just getting that feel as a team, you know, coming together and really improving. And I think you guys have hit that stride at this point. And wanted to see how, you know, what your thoughts are on that. Like, do you feel that? Do you feel like you guys are on the way up there and should, you know, I think right now you could make an argument as, you know, you guys being one of the top teams in Europe and, you know, going beyond that. Like, how do you feel right now?
So, I mean, it's not really a secret that we were in a slump since probably Gamescom. Like E-League, we had a bad performance, and then we flew straight to Apex Season 1, where we didn't have a really bad performance. We got out of groups, and then we had a super close quarterfinals that we lost. It was unfortunate. But then, then we just redid the whole roster. We got Sharik, we got Rubicon, and then we played with Rubicon for a long time, and then we just got Boombox, who is legendary. His man's right clicks are like better than mine, which is probably the biggest compliment I can give in the world. Right. And yeah, so, and then this weekend, like, we probably had like honestly, we had the easier side of the bracket, and we actually had a lot of close matches. Like before we came to the finals, like super close. Like even our 2-0s were like a lot of 99-99 on courts, and we even had to go to the third map 2 times, I think. And then against Misfits, we just had a break, and we everyone just got some food, and then I think everyone just played really well against Misfits, I think. And then Sharik did his monkey thing on the last map to just secure it instantly. So that was nice.
Yeah.
The monkey thing. I will say the biggest story I feel like of the new pickups that you guys have worked through, though, definitely was Boombox, where it's one of those things in Overwatch where a lot of the times it gets thrown on DPS players, right? Where the idea that a DPS player can bring back a losing fight when perhaps a fight hasn't started on the right foot. But you had so many times where Boombox was just able to basically give you guys a free fight because he's throwing his orbs in the right place, catches someone for effectively a kill before you guys have invested any resources into it. And it's like, oh, actually, we just take this fight for free. And he was doing that at consistency that you haven't really seen from others in Yada. So this is a part where it could be a little bit enlightening people, but where did you guys pick Boombox from?
I mean, we picked him from Cyclones, and we picked him because he was just, he did the same thing against us. He's like the most annoying guy to play against. You can just dive on him, and most of the time he's still gonna get a kill. And like it's true. Like a lot of the times you see is a Tracer getting like a early kill with a pulse bomb, but the Zenyatta can do exactly the same, and it has exactly the same impact on the fight after that. Like the amount of times Boombox just gets even if we have control, he just gets a right click on someone. It just tilts. It's so tilting to get like delayed like that all the time, and it just helps. So yeah.
Those Zenyatta charge ups, man. I've been seeing them nonstop, and yeah, it's been amazing. So Cyclones, getting Boombox from Cyclones, I actually thought Cyclones was going to take a pretty big hit after that roster change, but they've been still doing fine. I mean, they ended up winning day 2, right?
Yeah, so that team actually has they were so stacked because Laser Kittens even stole Mosasa from them.
Yeah, that's right.
Boombox is gone, so they lost 2 people, but they're still doing like really good, which says a lot about them. Like, I think it's actually like people are telling them that as well, that it's props that they're staying together. Like, I think a lot of teams would have just disbanded instantly and just all gone to different. I mean, all of them could literally find a new team, probably, like even a salary team, but they're just sticking together and looking for a home. So.
Well, one thing that's worth knowing there is that the cool thing about Contenders is that, yes, teams want to go as far as possible, but it is sort of a player proving grounds in a sense, right? Where you think about the other things coming up for Overwatch into the future and how Contenders is really just the very beginning. Even if they don't stay together as a team, I mean, what you're saying is very encouraging for them because other teams are going to be looking to round out spots, get upgrades where possible, and maybe they'll look to the Cyclones roster where, I mean, on one hand, it's bad in the idea that, they keep getting poached, but if they all get poached to better places, then, that can also be a thing into the future.
So there's a lot of teams, I would say on this list that maybe folks that are listening or watching probably don't know. They're very familiar with some of them, given that the EU region, again, hasn't had that many events, and we haven't been able to really showcase a lot of these brands. But just to read it out, just for the folks on audio, it's eUnited, Misfits, Movie Star Rider, Singularity, 123, Laser Kittens, Bazooka Puppies, VV's Adventure, Cyclones, Gamers Origin, NWA, Team Expert, Alpha Squad, Ninjas in Pajamas, Cyber Athletes, and Esperati. Yeah, making sure I pronounce that right. Well, one name that a lot of people do recognize is Ninjas in, NIP, obviously Ninjas in Pajamas. And, they finished, 14th on this list? So, not the greatest performance from them. So, wanted to get your thoughts. What do you guys noticed with NIP, maybe particularly this weekend?
So, I kind of want... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Morte.
They are known as probably the tank team in Europe, and tanking is just not that strong right now. So they basically already started playing with Linkser because they have to adapt to the dive. Like, I don't know if you watched Takeover, but they played Zenyatta with double/triple tank a lot with like Diva and Rein. And then they had Zappis playing Tracer and Genji for them. And I don't think that's something that will ever work in the long run if you want to like have a semi-okay dive. Like, you don't even always have to dive with a Genji, but I don't think it's possible for your Tracer player to also be your Genji player in your team. So that's why they struggled before, and now they got playing with Lynx, and I don't think it's like realistic to expect a team to do immediately well. So I think you just need to give them some time. I mean, they're good players. They just need some time, I think, and they need to completely rework their like compositions and the way they play.
I mean, you stop and think about the history of NIP here, and we were talking a little bit about before the broadcast, Morte, but they were way back in the day before they got picked up by NIP. They were SG1, and they've struggled for a really long time. And it wasn't until they sort of discovered, wait, heavy tank play can be effective in Overwatch, and we're going to use this, that they started catching teams off guard, where there was a notable game or day where they caught reUnited off guard, and it was sort of like, wait, this tank stuff is really effective. But it does feel like we've come full circle here in that you have a team that was never really very successful at non-tank gameplay, now forced into a situation where the meta isn't really allowing teams to be that successful with 3-4 tanks, and it's been a bit of a struggle for them. Now, you mentioned that they're adjusting having Linkser on. Linkser had a very standout performance, but would they need to do more in terms of, like, where do you think NIP has to go from here, the sort of build on where they have Linkser doing work and whatnot? Like, what's the next step? Because they haven't really taken that step yet.
Yeah, I don't really, like, I don't want to judge or something, but it's like, I don't think you can say that much yet. You should probably give them like a week or two and see how this works out for them, them adapting to dive. Like, if you can't make a good dive team, the thing is, like, a lot of teams right now are like focusing on one thing. And like, we are also like known as a dive team, obviously. Like, we always used to dive before as well, and maybe we were just worse after Gamescom because the tank meta came up and we were just not strong because of that. But I don't think it's like feasible to make like a team based on a meta. Like, a lot of teams are kicking people and replacing people just because one meta isn't working. But I think you should always have like a team, like, for example, it's like, I think Fraggy is really good on Reinhardt, but I don't think he's that strong on Winston. But there's a lot of people right now in the dive meta who are like really good on Winston, but aren't that strong on Reinhardt. But I don't think that's like sustainable model for like the long run. I think you need to have players who are like good on multiple things, because realistically, tanks are gonna come back in like, let's say, 9 months or a year when there's a new support introduced. So I think it's like, I mean, they've been together for so long, they should probably just stick it through, put in the time and see. And I think it's pretty easy to see in a dive composition who's really, really underperforming. So you can just take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. I think it's one of those things where it just plays into the same thing we've always discussed, which is these rosters just need to be more than 6 players. Otherwise, you're just going to be having turnover and, again, just adapting to the meta. It just doesn't. It's not good for your organization. Or it's not good for the player group, right? To always feel like you're a meta change from just being dropped from a team, and that doesn't create for stability in a good team.
One thing actually is interesting, you brought up the team core staying together. I mean, really, the reUnited core has been together for a very long time. And yes, there have been some changes here and there, but you guys don't change all that frequently. And then, of course, NIP, as you mentioned, they've been together for a really long time. And really the change with Mafu, who had the best hat in all of esports, now sort of taking a back seat to Linkser. I mean, NIP, this is one of the first changes they've made in a really long time.
Yeah.
Was it a stubborn thing in y'all's opinion, or do you think it was more of a decision that they felt that the meta will swing around? It's just a cyclical thing, so we'll have to take our hits, during this few months or these few months where dive is a big part of the meta, but the tank meta should come back around. It's just that's how it generally works. We've seen that in Overwatch, where every 6 months, maybe a little bit longer than that, we do see things coming back.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, do you see that
I think
as possibly been a decision there?
Yeah, but I don't think you can. I mean, you realistically can't just wait for the tank meta to come back
I
again.
mean, it seemed like they were, though. It totally seemed like they were being.
I think like pulling teams apart, like for us, we have our core together for so long as well, and I don't really know like how much it influences our gameplay, but I'm pretty sure like we have the most fun outside the game, like on TeamSpeak and stuff. So, I mean, I think that helps in like powering through downtimes. Like we've been in slumps as well. Like sometimes even you play just super bad at scrims for like a day or two, but we're just making jokes and we just know, like we've been there like so many times already that you just know that you're gonna get out of it. And just if everyone just does its job, that I don't know. I think it helps. Like there's one side where if you get too friendly, people become a bit lazy, I think. And sometimes that happens in our team. Like if you don't know anyone in your team, then it's more of like a real job, and you just turn up for practice. You put in everything because everyone is putting in everything. So I'm not really sure yet what's the better side. If it's better to be friends and have a lot of fun, or if it's better to just, I don't know.
It can be
Well, it
hard
does
to
seem
let
like
it can be hard to let players go too if you are super friendly and have that kind of relationship.
Well, I mean, I mean, me and Twiz are best friends. We kicked him, so.
Right. Right.
Hey, Too Easy is making a strong comeback in NA, so all things do work out. One thing I will note there, as far as it goes, you're right. There are two different approaches. Although I do wonder if the sort of friend approach, how long that's going to last, because it does feel like there's been more of a dominant trend in Overwatch to going, actually, we're going to come in here with a coach that's going to just really be somewhat of a hard ass and running things and going rest. Not like saying people can't have fun, but sort of you have this overwhelming authority figure. Because from what you're describing, does it sound like you have, I don't know the details of the eUnited coaching situation, but does it sound like you have a situation like you do with C9, where you hear about stories about C9 where Bishop runs a very tight ship in terms of organizing people, saying, hey, we're going to run this. They are not at all hesitant to swap up players if it's needed, where you've had a lot of roster swaps on C9 in recent times. But that's a different way of running a team than sort of what you're describing that you have right now with eUnited, in a sense.
I mean, we don't really run a tight ship, no. I mean, maybe at some point it's going to have to be like a bit tighter, like coaching-wise, like, but no, not like kicking players and stuff, but more like forcing people to play serious and to always show up in time. I mean, it's not like we're late a lot, but I mean, that's like more... I think you have like coaches. The thing is, I think like a lot of coaches in this game don't really have the knowledge yet to like help the players like play better. I think most of the teams should just like focus themselves on like discussing what they could improve, and then a coach should more be there to like realize what mistakes were made, record votes, and just repeat stuff back, like what we went over and that kind of stuff. And then you can also have a coach who's like really strict and who's like for example, Dylor in League of Legends. I don't even think he knew anything about League of Legends before he went to Fnatic, and he just got that team in order just by being strict. I think that's the way it can work as well.
Yeah, I mean, organization is a big deal too. Just having structured schedules, and I mean that's a big part of the coaching too, and making things much more efficient. We always talk about just the knowledge aspect of it. Okay, well, in terms of you guys were in Korea. It seems like a long time ago now, but I guess if you look back at it, it wasn't that long ago. If you guys were offered up a chance to go back to Korea for the next season of Apex, would you guys jump on that?
Probably. Oh, next season, well, that I thought like if we wanted to go back to Korea for sure, like a whole season. I mean, it depends what it clashes with. I mean, we're gonna have season 1 as well of Overwatch Contenders, obviously, and who knows when the Overwatch League comes rolling around. So might have to be a bit careful. But I mean, Korea is by far the practice there is actually insane. Ranked there is better. I mean, it's just. Like honestly, like right now in Europe, it's getting. I mean, that's a bit arrogant, but it's kind of hard to find like a full week of good practice simply because the exodus of EU teams has like started a long time ago already. So
well, just going back to Korea again, I mean, I feel like if there was a way of making it work where it didn't conflict with things like contenders or otherwise, Cruz would have a lot of just feedback from very passionate fans that he has in Korea going, why are you not coming back here? Because apparently Cruz...
I mean, we all love Korea. I mean, I would go back instantly as well. But I mean, we were there for season 1, but we also bootcamped there like in, how long was it? Like a month ago, 1.5 months ago. So the funny part is like, that's like, not a lot of people know that, but our scrims there were actually like a slight disaster. Like we actually didn't have good performance there at all, but we actually took home a lot, like to stuff we just implemented. Like I have a full hard disk full of VOD still with schemes from Korea where you can still just sometimes just watch back and take stuff from. So it's pretty interesting.
Okay. So why don't we talk about the group stages for the Overwatch Contenders, since all the qualifiers were done, and we've got both the NA and the EU qualifiers here. So I mean, given that we we obviously were talking about EU. Why don't we start with the Europe one first? So Group A, which is your group, eUnited, Bazooka, Puppies, Team Expert, and Esporati.
I think we should win that.
Yeah, I think
I agree.
too.
This is a case where normally like a challenge, go,
Yeah, I
what do
think
you think about this? And from what we saw over the first weekend of contenders play for EU, I really don't think eUnited is going to have a whole lot of trouble with Group A unless Morte purposely just tries to make things interesting to try and prove me wrong. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is a case where eUnited was both in terms of just how they play as a team and the mechanical skill that they have. I think you'd have to see a rather large uptick in gameplay from any of the other 3 teams in Group A, the Challenge United. That said, I do think that it'll be interesting to see who gets number 2 in Group A. I'd probably give an edge to Bazooka Puppies going in, but you never know. I think that the field could be more wide open there, aside from United, who's probably
Expert is actually also probably a pretty underrated team. Like they're playing pretty well lately, so I don't know.
Bazooka Puppies, you mean?
And I actually don't think we, but Team Expert and
Team
Bazooka
Expert,
Puppies. I don't even think we played them yet. I mean, Rubicon is on that team, so there's like a tiny bit of
rivalry.
And Esperati, we haven't played against at all yet, so it's interesting. I mean, we're just gonna go all in on our matches and just see what happens. I mean, try out some new stuff maybe. The other groups are way more interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Group B has Misfits, Laser Kittens, Ninjas with Attitude, and Esporters Cyber Athletes. I love that name. That's so classic. All right. So this one, I don't know. This one pretty cut and clear, or clear cut for you guys. Like I didn't get a chance to see some of the Ninjas with Attitudes and Esporters Cyber Athletes play.
Well,
Ninjas has a pretty good team as well, so they could come out surprisingly. Like realistically, Misfits and Laser Kittens should get 1 and 2, but I'm mostly interested in who is gonna get 1 and who is gonna get 2 in this group. Just because I mean we've been screaming Laser Kittens not that much. I think we played them.
Yeah.
No, we actually only played them once now, I think. So, but they played really well. So maybe were just underperforming against Misfits. I don't know. Like Misfits really played well, and I don't know if we didn't play well when we didn't have a good day when we were skimming Laser Kit. It's like so hard to say, especially with dive. If you have like a bad day, or if someone has a bad day, let's say your Tracer has a bad day, or your Genji has a bad day, then you can't really say who's performing. So I actually think that matchup is gonna be probably a bit closer than the first one.
Okay.
I don't know who's gonna.
I would say there. I mean, I think you can make arguments for both sides, even though Misfits in their last showing did look significantly stronger than Laser Kittens. When you take in totality how Misfits has struggled at times in recent times, the fact that Laser Kittens has done a lot of good prep behind the scenes and I take this last with a grain of salt because it's scrims, but I'm just hearing stories about what they've done behind the scenes in scrims otherwise. I do think that's a case where it wouldn't be that surprising if Laser Kittens came above Misfits in this group. And then you sort of have the wild card of wherever Ninjas with Attitude might be, where in theory there is a lot of experience and skill on that team, but they didn't really live up to it over the course of the qualifiers. I mean, they played well enough to qualify for the group stage, but I would say it would require Misfits or Laserkins both to have a rather big downturn for NWA to sneak the number 2 spot away from either of them. And Esporter Cyber Athletes, I mean, great team name and whatnot aside, it feels like a tall order for them to not only get above NWA, but also get above either Misfits or OK. Doesn't feel like it's going to happen, but you never know.
So the interesting thing with Misfits, I think, is like at Take TV, they obviously didn't have the best showing. Only the last match they played really well, and I think it mostly had to do with them being kind of stubborn, and they played dive. They played like a lot of compositions before Take TV. When we were skimming them, they played like dive. They played tanks, but they played tanks like a lot still. And I think they pretty much gave up on that like a few days before Take TV and now. So they actually got way better before Take TV, and since Take TV, they've been like really improving. It's actually like the coordination between Nevix and the Vic sometimes. I think it was even on the stream a few times where like the Vic goes around the back and they like literally delete the Zen or the Ana within like a millisecond together. Their coordination is really scary, but it's just the teamwork, like the rest of the team is like, I don't know, still needs to improve a bit.
One question I had for you, Morte, here, and this is just one of those things and trying to evaluate whether or not it was the right path. And of course, Misfit certainly thinks it is. But So Tvik is one of the most multi-talented players in the game. I mean, going all the way back, there's a time where you could put him on basically anything and expect things to go really well. But it always felt like he had more of a tilt towards projectile DPS. And I'm not sure you see it right now, but finding good projectile DPS has been really hard in the Overwatch scene. Do you think that Misfits made the right call going to Tvik and go, actually, we want you to be our tracer versus trying to put him more on projectile DPS? Because that's just interesting. Because again, for me, even though he can play everything, historically I sort of associated with him more with, say, Genji than Tracer, which is now the path that he's going down.
So the thing is, I think Nevix and Tvik were both really good Tracers and really good Genjis, but they did have to make a decision who's going to play what. Like, sometimes in matches we had Monotone playing Genji, and then Nevix playing Tracer, and then Tvik playing Diva. Like, that's they like to do so much that they probably just did too much. Like, you don't always have to keep inventing stuff. Like, I think Tvik is a really good Tracer. He's a really smart player. I think you could change it around as well, but I don't think it matters much. Like, realistically, I think Nevix might be. I said that's the way I said it like before on TeamSpeak as well. Like, Nevix, I think, is a better Genji without ult, and I think Tvik is way better with ult. So I don't know, like, which is more important. Like,
one builds the ult
feels.
quicker, and one's
yeah.
If only you could just swap computers where you get to thing mid tournament where you just.
He's like, "Hey, I got ult, come take over." Right now.
But I mean, Tracer is massively impactful now as well, and just Tvik being on that and being such a smart player, like, even Valu says that as well. You don't need to have the best aim on Tracer. You just need to be a smart player, go back for your orb sometimes, play around med packs, play around your E. And yeah, I mean, Tvik is probably one of the smartest players in the game, and that he can play everything is just helpful. I think right now it's probably better to focus on 1/2 heroes in dive. Yeah. And just have one flexer. I mean, right now we sometimes flex a lot, but I mean, it's basically been unfixed flexing for us to pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm. Unfixed has done the World Tour of Heroes, where I go back and remember him on things like Thera, and now he's doing more 76. So, like, it just over the course of it for Reunited, it does feel like he has been the Swiss Army
by far.
Yeah,
he plays Mei, Diva, 76, Farah.
Keeping
plays Junkrat. We don't pull it out anymore. He even played Genji for us for a while. So
we saw some junk. We did see some junk last week, right? That was crazy. All right, Group C, guys. This one seems to be completely open. Anybody can take this. Singularity Ninjas, Vivi's Adventure, Gamers Origin, and NIP at the end, or NIP at the end. So kind of an interesting ranking here, but Singularity Ninjas did perform pretty well. So who do you think is going to come out of this one? This is a big prediction here.
No clue.
No clue.
No, but this is the funny part. Like, this is probably, it might not be the most interesting. It's a really interesting group just because the teams are actually really, really close probably in this group. So I actually don't know who's going to take top 2 here. Like, the others are probably more predictable.
Group C, I don't think anyone could firmly say that they know who 1 and 2 are going to be unless that person is just ignoring the volatility of the group or just wants to throw it out there for fun. Because really, you take a look at it, you can make arguments in many different directions as to how Group C can do, just because you're dealing with teams that have had high highs, low lows. And I mean, NIP is still a wild card because in theory, they have had times where they've been very close to winning tournaments. Now the rest, they have to deal with their issues. But if they were able to find a way of dealing with those issues before Saturday and come out strong, I mean, them taking 1 or 2 wouldn't surprise me. Gamers Origin had good moments. So did Vivi's and Singularity Ninjas. So I don't know. It's so difficult to predict this particular group. It's easily the most unpredictable of the 3.
Yeah. I mean, NIP's fortunate to be in this one. I mean, they could have been in some of the other ones, and I think it would have been more of a clear cut that they wouldn't be beating the top 2 teams in those groups. So, maybe they can get it together with Linkster by that time. All right, Group D, Movie Star Riders, 1, 2, 3, Cyclowns, and Alpha Squad. So 1, 2, 3, I don't think I saw any match with 1, 2, 3. Did you guys? What do you guys think of 1, 2, 3?
We played against them.
No, I have to.
I think we had a really close match against them actually. So
okay,
they were pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, 1, 2, 3 looked promising. Cyclowns also looked really good on day number 2. Alpha Squad, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, maybe they could surprise us there. I'd say the thing that seems to be more concrete than not, although I would say I'd be really surprised if Movie Star Riders didn't end up at least 2 within this group, though there is the possibility that 1, 2, 3 and Cyclones just played out of their mind. I don't think that's going to happen, given there's just the level of skill we're seeing out of Movie Star Riders. I think it's more likely to take number 1, but...
Correction, it's my mistake. Team 1, 2, 3 is actually the team that took out NIP in the first qualifier.
Yes.
So yeah, we didn't play them. I thought we did. But yeah, that's actually interesting.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
It would have been even better if 1, 2, 3 was in NIP's group, because then you could have had the grudge match going on there.
Yeah, that would be at least something to talk about there. All right, well, let's go up to the NA brackets, or the NA groups here. And the NA, I think top 16 definitely have a lot more recognizable team names here. And we're going to start off with Group A with FaZe Clan, Selfless, CLG, and Team Liquid. I mean, this is a lot of I would say fan favorite teams all fighting against each other here. So I mean, Selfless, I mean, I think maybe that's the first thing we should talk about. I mean, pretty big changes here because of the suspension of Dafran, and obviously he will not be competing in this group stage. So I mean, I guess the first question is, how much is Selfless affected by this?
Massively. You have removed from him one of the very best soldiers in the entire game, and Selfless was getting by, not with great Overwatch strategy, but by just brute forcing people on mechanical skill, and a lot of that brute forcing came from Dafran.
Yeah.
I'm still of the opinion when I look at Sinatra that Sinatra is a good player, but a lot of Sinatra's moments where he was going off and doing insane things really came from the part where the teams were more worried about Dafran than they were Sinatra, because if you're trying to contain Dafran, well, Sinatra is inherently getting a lot more room to work with. You see that happen not just in esports, but in traditional sports as well. I think it's going to be very tough for Selfless, because even if you were to grab, say, a hit scan DPS like, I don't know, Xretzi, who's very good, you're still not going to reproduce what Dafran was giving you. I think there's very, very few people in the game that could reproduce the impact of Dafran, and it's a bad time to go through that level of adjustment at this stage in the tournament when you have to get top 2.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, I think they just announced that the patch is hitting next week, which probably includes Rodok changes as well, which means they can play one group stage day with
one match,
an overpowered Rodok before it gets nerfed. So yeah, that's also going to impact them drastically. I mean, even if you could find a soldier that's as good as Dafran, then still, like, just clashing with the team in that short amount of time is just unrealistic. I think this will be a very hard group for them to get out of. I mean, FaZe are doing way better since they reformed. And I mean, I have to admit, I haven't been following the NA scene that closely, so I don't really know, like, who. I mean, yeah.
Well, my dark horse for Group A, I think that FaZe, the way they're playing, is definitely a favorite to take first. But my dark horse to come back out in more ways than one, because their logo is a horse, is that I think Team Liquid played under what they normally do in the qualifying days. I think Team Liquid actually has a really good chance to come out here and take second, just because we've seen them play really well in recent memory, and they've definitely underperformed. But I just think that there's things Team Liquid could do, and also, I've heard rumors of roster changes that might happen here. We'll see, but I just think there's a lot to be said for the idea that Team Liquid, in many different ways, could come out and take number 2, or even perhaps surprise FaZe. I don't know. Maybe this is Hex rubbing off on me and just
I don't
really
know if they're going
wanting
to beat FaZe, but they.
I don't think it would be wise to discount the possibility.
They have a high ceiling, and it's just a matter of consistency for that team. But I mean, FaZe has been. I mean, obviously, FaZe had a huge weekend last week, or a huge week, and I feel like CLG has been consistent the last few weeks too. So, I mean, I don't know. Team Liquid, Hulk joining them recently too. We'll see if that kind of kicks in at all.
I mean,
but
FaZe is still playing kind of handicapped, right? With Shadowburn Genjiing from Europe, so that's like something that just keeps people will, like, sometimes forget that. But if you put him in an A, that's already gonna improve them, like, drastically, because it has a lot of impact. Like, I don't even know, like, what the rules are, but aren't rosters locked for this?
No,
they're not.
No, they are not. So rosters were only locked for qualifying weekend. You can change your roster to be whatever you want it to be going into the next weekend. So it's pretty wide open, even to the point where I think if a player played for another team in the qualifier, I think that player could still play for a different team in the group stages. So
I mean, I
You can
kind of
abuse that.
understand.
I feel like you can
I
abuse
kind of
that.
understand, but I don't really like that. Like realistically, that just is, yeah. Like then we're gonna have the situation maybe like where a team qualifies for season 1 and then they get replaced by.
That's what I mean. You can
don't know,
abuse
that's-
that totally, right? Like basically playing for spots, right? Selling your spot.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, hey, we got
that,
spots.
well, I do believe the orgs have the right to the spot, so you are correct that you could have a situation where a team qualifies and then the organization actually decides to dump the entire roster. I mean, that I believe that could be a thing. Don't quote me on it directly. Yeah. I don't know the specifics, but from whatever basic understanding I have, I mean that is a possibility. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, but I guess in theory it could.
Yeah.
But we have an admin in the chat, so that's good. The roster will lock again before the group starts, so we can't really change mid-group stage at least. It's like.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
But
that'd be kind of crazy.
So like Group A, I don't really have I don't know how CLG has been performing lately actually. So I think they got better. They improved.
CLG improved because they swapped up their support, where they had the playing support for them, but the was really only proficient on Mercy, which led them running a lot of Fair Mercy, which was very effective for them, but eventually they sort of hit a limit. Then they swapped out the for Shake, and Shake being on the team, he has a wider support pool, and he really enabled them to run Genji a lot more. He enabled them to swap up what they were running previously because they weren't locked in the Mercy every game. So that's basically what gave CLG their shot in the arm, where now they're more versatile. You still see Pharah a lot more than you see from EU, but they're very comfortable putting hydration in the Genji and running from that perspective now too. So that's what's sort of given CLG more stability in recent days.
Well, given what we brought it up already a bit with the Selfless talk and with the Dafran, one of the big news or big announcements that happened this week was that Dafran was suspended, and he got suspended for 2 seasons of Overwatch Contenders as well as this entire competitive season. And that means not being able to compete in any events that Blizzard's hosting or anybody, or at least they're organizing, right? And this all stemmed from him tanking and trolling and just breaking the behavior clause, in the I think the agreement, right? The agreement to participate in these leagues and events. So there was some debate about whether the punishment was too harsh, and wanted to see what you guys thought. Is Dafran being made an example with an overly harsh penalty, or do you think this properly matches what he did?
I don't think it's overly harsh. I mean, I think here's the thing here is that we are hitting the point where you're expected to be held to somewhat of a higher standard here. And it's one thing to have banter or beef between different players and organizations and otherwise. Like, for example, I wouldn't expect XQC to get banned for what he's saying about Selfless or all the rest. Like, that's just sort of trash talk that you do get. I think the line that Dafran crossed, and it's a very important line to note here, is that it wasn't that he was just, his persona towards other players. It's the part where he's throwing games and sort of going into the general player base and going, in a sense, via his actions, I'm more important than you. I'm just going to troll. I'm going to do this. And starting to affect tangibly just players overall. It was a very, very bad look that went beyond sort of mischievous actions that you might expect from other players. And it's not something that really looks good for the game, where I'm not saying as a pro player you have to be a saint, but I do think there was a line crossed in how Dafran was handling himself.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. Like, I actually think this punishment is completely deserved. Like, I think the initial announcement they put out they had a typo where it said that he would be banned forever from tournaments run by Blizzard.
Oh man.
And that probably is a bit too harsh. I mean, it's kind of obvious they're making an example out of him, but I think it's really important. Like, we're getting to the stage. Like, obviously, this is a ramping up to the Overwatch League, and people just need to realize, especially players. There's a lot of. I mean, I've been around for so long that I'd like to believe I know how to behave and stuff in the public. So I think behaving professionally is really important. And trash talking is fun. That adds a lot to the game. I think sometimes people are too careful. Like, I think it's fun, for example, that Rogue trash talks so much that people are arrogant. But you just I mean, I'm an arrogant guy as well, but you just don't cross the line. Like, it's
yeah.
I would say in general, I mean, this is sort of like it's not really that much of a secret if you've been around competitive players anytime, but there's a point too where people have to realize is that, players actually hold back their trash talk a little bit more than they otherwise would, because frankly, to get up to a really high level of play, and whether it be a video game or really in most things in life, the people that get to the very top, like on some level, you have to have an ego. You can't give 100% like full on GGs, etc. I mean, you can stop yourself from making a fool of yourself in public, but players do have egos, and sure, you get your players that trash talk and have that come out in public, but villains also make things more entertaining. The part where Dafran crossed the line is the part where you're just actually throwing games that people are trying to win in good faith, people that aren't even necessarily part of the high competitive scene. And it's sort of like there's a line where you still expect people where be a villain all you want, but still try and win your games. Don't outright throw.
Well, you're griefing people. You can't grief people. I mean, that's always going to break, conduct or whatever kind of rules for any game. And we know Blizzard has been trying to crack down on all of these things. I mean, that's why we have the feedback system. And I mean, you see a post like once every 2 or 3 months, they're talking about them, trying to enforce it even more, right? And we don't get a chance to see what happens behind the scenes. But this is, like when you become a high profile player and you're streaming, and not only are you griefing people, you're telling other people to grief people. That's when, like, come on. I mean, you're going to get
griefing and throwing. Penalized. Griefing and throwing is one thing, but like actively streaming it and like showing you're doing it on purpose and just doing other stuff on your stream and telling people to do it, like that's where you cross the line. Like I could go, I mean, I would never do it, but I could go in-game throw right now, and as long as I don't stream, I mean, there's not that much impact it will have. Obviously, all throwers and griefers should be like removed from competitive play, but that's not. I mean, that would change nothing, like really. But if you start streaming it and you're like an open personality and you're considered to be a pro, you just have some. I think you have some moral code you have to adhere to.
Yeah, higher responsibility.
Well, the other thing too is that throwing is something that Blizzard comes down on pretty heavily if there is actual undeniable proof. The thing is that you can't really get undeniable proof in most of these cases unless the person outright admits it, which Dafran did with 6 hours of recorded video, because you do get like there's different standards of what people consider throwing. Like to give you an example of something that many pro players might consider throwing, but would never be considered throwing on an official level, is that say you really wanted to practice Symmetra, right? Where you wanted to try Symmetra on offense and defense and see how you can make it work. A lot of people would go, holy crap, you're throwing. Why are you going Symmetra on offense in my game? But you don't know if that person just has the intent of trying to make it work, even though, it's going to be difficult. That's not throwing, even though arguably they could play a higher win rate hero. That's in the gray zone that you'll never be able to punish. The thing that Dafran did is he says, I'm going to go Torbjorn and build turrets in my spawn while watching videos on Twitch at the same time because I don't care about winning this game. That's not trying to play Torb in good faith to win a game. That is literally self-admitted throwing.
Yeah. In the end, guys, it's no different than, the other sports and maybe even other jobs these days. I mean, you've seen people getting fired for what they tweet, from all kinds of jobs. So, your actions that aren't even necessarily in these type of events or whatnot will be reflected upon you in terms of these, this type of, your job or whatever. If you want to be a professional Overwatch player, then, you have a different level that you have to behave. Your behavior has to be reflected even when you're not playing Overwatch. And, so, it's to be expected. Like Morte was saying, this is becoming more professional, and that's just going to have to be part of it. So, anyways, let's get back to the group stage. Just wanted to cover that, given that we were talking about it anyways. All right, Group B, guys. LG Evil, you guys get paid. Toronto Esports and Envision. This one's
probably the.
Go ahead.
Probably the most wide open group
of
I was NA stages here. Just because LG Evil, even though they've had times where they've been utterly dominant in NA, they've had periods where they've been less than so. I do think Jake's performance and his comfort level certainly plays a part in that. And also, LG Evil, they've had to adjust to different metas. I do think that they are in the upswing, so it'd be a little bit weird if they didn't get first in the group. But we have seen LG Evil sort of throw things away in the past, so I'm not 100% sold on it being a lock for them to get first. The rest of it, Envision is an up-and-coming team. Toronto Esports also had a much better than expected showing. You had a player really come out of nowhere as a superstar in Jaru, where I absolutely want to see more of him and what he brings to the table. And, of course, you guys get paid. That's a team that has veterans, that has been around for quite a while, looking to get to the next step as well. So I actually think that number 2 for Group B is very wide open. I wouldn't be really surprised to see any of the 3 teams under LG Evil take it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have to root for Toronto. My boy Onigot is over there, so.
That's true. I wonder if is Oni in the chat? I'm not even sure if he's in the chat right now, but yeah, Onigot there. Envision had a good week too. It just depends if they play at the same, just at that same level, this week. Both actually Toronto Esports and Envision. You guys get paid too as a pretty interesting team. At least with some of the players, they have some, obviously, actually some known players too on that roster. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Group C, we've got the FNRGFE team, which is the fan favorite, or at least the caster favorite.
What a great name to say on broadcast. I mean, now I can say to myself, it's like, and now FNRGFE goes to the pay. Like, okay, it's almost, we did.
It's almost natural now, yeah. And then they're joined by Yikes, Immortals, and Tempo Storm, which is the team on the rise too. So this is an interesting group. I think a lot of people, right off the top would probably say Immortals and Yikes, just from what they know. But I don't know. I feel like either FNRGFE and Tempo Storm could pull an upset on the Yikes, or at least pull that second spot.
I know Morte's rooting for Tempo Storm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course. I mean, I know
your boy's on it. Of course.
Yeah, but I talk to Tweezy a lot, so it's like I know they've been doing well in scrims and stuff. So I think this might actually. I don't know how to call this group. Like, I actually have no clue. I think this will be pretty close. I mean, Immortals also just went through some restructuring, so. And Tempo Storm also just went through some restructuring, and they got a coach. Let's see how it pays off, I guess.
Yeah,
I would say, actually, we're talking about Group B being wide open. Yeah, looking at it again, I think Group C is relatively wide open as well, where Yikes, of course, had their really big breakout moment in the final monthly melee, but they've struggled a little bit in the aftermath. FNRGFE, they're a new squad with veteran players, but on the same note is that teams watch video. Teams, generally speaking, come out stronger on new rosters than they end up doing in the weeks after, because people now know how they play. And then Immortals, I think, came out incredibly strong on day 2 once their players flown in from Korea actually had time to get some rest. I do think there's the possibility they could have a resurgence and take first. Tempo is a wild card. Yeah, I actually think pretty much everything in this group is a wild card to some extent. My gut feels that Immortals, I think, will do very well with the changes they've made. I think they've had enough time to adapt. I would probably pick them to get number 1, but I don't know. It's somewhat wide open.
Yeah. I'd say the same. I think number 2 is the spot that's up for grabs. Immortals just has enough experience. They've been in these kind of situations, and even with some changes. I mean, they've been in a situation where they've had a change just like a couple days before, and they've ended up performing well. So I think they can pull this off. Group D. All right, we've got Kangarna, Detroit Renegades, Cloud9, and Hollywood Hammers. This one's an interesting one too. I mean, I think a lot of people.
I have some insight in this one. At
least,
really?
Because
we played. I mean, we played against Cloud9 on LAN, and we had Hollywood Hammers just came from Europe. So I have some more to say about this one.
Okay.
So Kangarna is like reformed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I don't know like how good they are.
Good. They got to have TSM jail is what happened there.
Okay. The Renegades, they've been around for a long time now. They've been just doing okay. That's basically what I always
recently had a decent finish, but they were, they've been struggling for a while before that.
I think like Cloud9 is probably like if they had a lot of, they didn't have time at all really before Take TV. Like they flew Kaiser
Poor Kaiser,
NA, and then he flew insta back to Germany. They barely had time to practice. I think like a week max. So at least they have a lot of time now. I think because that's actually a team like Cloud9. You could notice it on LAN as well. They can literally play anything. Like they can play dive. They just swap off to tanks whenever they want. Sometimes like last states when it's arguably like dive is not always the best right now. I think even so some last stages it's probably better to swap to Ryan. It's something we're trying as well now. So. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I mean, Hammer is a really solid team of good players. Only problem, like slight problem they might have is that Snizzle knows is very good at Rodok, but Rodok is not played anymore, so...
Yeah, nerf too.
Snizzle is like very publicly not happy about it. I remember there was a rep that where he's just like, yeah, I wish they did this for changes instead, or like, give me back the 6-second hook. Snizzle knows is a man passionate about his Roadhog, and obviously
that's
taking it there.
but that's the way it is. Like, people playing against Rodok want to get it nerfed. People playing Rodok think it's fine. Teams playing Dive think Dive is fine. People playing tanks think Dive is overpowered. I mean, that's just, everyone is biased. Like, literally.
Okay, so Morte, that just goes back to the entire thing where, rocks go, look, paper is overpowered, scissors, they're fine. These things happen. People are very much biased towards the things they like and the things they're good at, and
their self-interest. They have their own interest in that, Of course.
But I will say here, as far as it goes, we didn't talk about who we thought to do well in Group D.
Yeah.
I do think Cloud9 certainly has an edge here, and the one thing I'll say here is that I wouldn't be surprised to see Hollywood Hammers take away from Kangarna. I would be surprised if Renegades was able to put together a full group stage and get top 2 given the competition here. I think Renegades has been somewhat struggling for quite a while here, and I don't think the recent changes they've made have been enough to really fix that conundrum. I think that they have the ability to maybe take a set off of any of the teams here, but I don't see them being consistent enough to do well enough to actually get top 2.
Okay. I think I'd agree with that too. I really want to see how Cloud9 does. I'd like to see them just dominate this group, and not, just kind of eke out some wins here, because I feel like they've been on the verge of doing it. Like they've played teams that are that they haven't been necessarily expected to beat a lot of times and have done pretty well. But I think they're in a position here where they should be beating these teams, and I'd just like to see them beat them handily, so we can see where some of these teams are falling, especially Cloud9. So I'm most curious to see what happens with that. Hammers too. I think Hammers has been on the rise too, just with the last couple events. So all right. Well, I mean, this is going to start on the 17th, I believe, right? Obviously ZP, you're going to be casting this, I assume.
Yeah.
So that's going to be Saturday, and which one's first? Is it Europe first, and then NA is the 18th? Okay.
Yes.
It has to be Europe first, just for logistics, if you think about it, because Europe is earlier in the day and NA is later in the day. If you were to run NA on Saturday, then you would have a case where your production staff would get 5 hours of rest before they would have to come in and prepare for the next day. So there's basically no other way of doing it other than having EU on Saturday and NA on Sunday.
Right. And who's all casting? So Hex, Gil, the Monty.
Same as last week.
Same as last week. Okay, cool. All right. Well, that was Overwatch Contenders. Why don't we maybe just kind of cruise through Apex here, given that we spent a lot of time there. So Apex Season 3, Envy played this past week, and this began the playoffs, the playoff groups. And Envy ended up playing X6 first round. Tight series, but they ended up losing 3-2. So, they're going to, backs are against the wall. They pretty much have to win out at least the next two just to have a chance. But the fact that they lost 3-2 is good for them. But overall, what did you guys think about that match? I mean, obviously very, very tightly contested. And X6 is like a dark horse that a lot of people have been picking.
I mean, we played against X6 as well. When we were boot camping in Korea, they're like really strong. I think Envy kinda didn't play that good, and I always have the feeling that they trying to force like some stuff, like this Reaper Sombra stuff worked, I think, the match before them, so they just try to power it through again, but I don't think it's like worth staying on it for that long. I think in general, like Envy is really good at like doing, like creating like weird situations for the enemy team. For example, I think that like a best of one on Lijiang, right, to decide the
the tiebreaker, right? There was a tie.
And then Taimo just went Widow on Lijiang, and like that's something you never ever see anymore. I think like I can't remember the last time I saw that in a match, and then it just pops off just because just having something that strange, people don't really know how to react anymore. So
I've always been an advocate of the idea of coming out with things that are strong that another team might not be able to deal with immediately. It goes back to, this is actually like old school fighting game knowledge type stuff, but there's the idea of you don't have to do anything different until they prove that they can beat what you're doing. Like there's people you can beat or at least catch off guard by doing something that they haven't seen for a while, because it's going to take a while to actually adapt to it. Why treat them to your straight up best look when you have something that, that actually they might not deal with for a while. So it's actually something I wish that we'd see a little bit more frequently in Overwatch, where teams would just pull out the wild card every now and then and go, wait, what are they running? Why is this working? And before you know it, now they've gained 40-50% of the control map almost for free.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the same a bit like Nip problem though, I think, with MV. Like, I mean, Taimo has insane aim on like McCree, he can do a lot, he can on Widow he can pop up, but you're still gonna have the fact that they don't really have a Genji player. So they're like against dive, they're just gonna struggle. It's I don't know. I mean, the effect plays Genji, but then you don't really have the Tracer player anymore, or Harry has to go on Tracer, or I don't even know if I actually did Taimo ever play Widow? I don't even know. Or the Tracer, I mean.
Taking effect off of Tracer, I think, would be crazy.
The effect is doing
he's like the best
amount
Tracer. I mean, it's like no question. So I think that would just be a bad move, period.
Envy not being able to play good Genji has really been a thorn in their side for a really long period of time, and it's something that they probably need to address. And look, I mean, even though it didn't work out with Louis, they're very clearly interested in exploring the idea of six-man or beyond six-man rosters. So, I mean, it's something that they're probably going to have to look at sooner rather than later. Now, whether or not they're able to play through it here and come back to the lower bracket of Apex, we'll have to see. One thing that I thought was interesting, and this is just sort of like what I've been hearing from other people and all the rest and going into it, but what do you think about the idea, Morte, that Korea is just better at prepping for specific matchups, where perhaps X6 going into this really dug deeply into the annals of what NV has been doing, and NV perhaps didn't dig as deeply into X6. So you had a case where going into the matchup, you just had one team that was more well prepared than the other.
I think Koreans prepare like for sure way better, like for teams. Like we even noticed it on Take TV already, like with Bishop there for Cloud9. He actually, like, I think that's a big difference between Western teams and Korean teams right now, is Western teams are just brute forcing the stuff that they're really good at. Like Rogue is the best example, but we're pretty much the same as Rogue. Like sometimes we adapt to another team, but we're still gonna stick to what we are most comfortable with. But what you're most comfortable with might not be the strongest against another team. Like maybe it's better to pull another team out of their comfort zone than it is for you to be in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like I mean Koreans do that a lot, I think, and I don't think Western teams do it like enough at all. I think Western teams are like still, that's the, I mean, you get who is better and stuff, then you get on that topic. But I think like skill-wise, I think there's an insane amount of good Western players, but I just think we're a bit lazy. I think.
Well, now let me just let me ask you this, and this kind of gets back to the coaching aspect and all the rest. But do you think part of that is on coaching, or do you think part of it is on players and what they're willing to listen to on coaching and all the rest? Because it does feel like there's more of a respect from sort of top-down organization.
Yeah, I
on
think
the
there's
Korean side of things.
a lot of egos in Overwatch teams in the Western scene, and that doesn't help. Like, I don't know. I mean, even for me, sometimes it's hard to listen to, hey, it's our coach. So that's already like saying enough. Like,
Yeah.
I think I don't know. The discipline is just different there. So yeah,
I mean, it could have
it's
been
something we have to fix for sure. Like, but that's why I think at some point you're gonna have like really analysts who are like really good at understanding what's going on and what we could improve. And like, I mean, that's what you have in law already. You basically have the coach who's like the strict guy and who's like telling you to do this and just listen and listen. And then you have the analyst who really has the knowledge and just shares that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, that there is some type of, deficiency there, or there difference there between the two regions or the two cultures or whatever. But I think in this particular case, ZP, it could have been just the case of what you were talking about before, the fighting games. I mean, Envy had a strategy with Sombra and a lot of these maps where they won easily, Sombra Reaper or whatever it was. They won, like, they were winning Volskaya super easily at one point. Anubis, they were even winning at least a relatively, with ease. And then, so it could have been one of those cases where, they didn't feel like they needed to adapt because nobody has been able to stop them or even play decently against them on those maps. And you saw X6 adapt to it. So it can get tricky because, like, if you go and look at X6 and you want to, adapt to a strategy that maybe you guys haven't practiced enough, choosing between something that counters what your opponent's doing versus doing what you do best is a difficult decision, and I think that when you're not playing in a series, it can be analogous to, like, say, like the NBA Finals, right? The first team to win usually has an advantage because they have the last countering ability, right? Like after game 2, that team that lost will counter whatever that other team did in game 1 and be able to respond to it better. And I think a lot of times that has an advantage, and it kind of goes back and forth like that. In this type of thing, it's like you kind of get one shot at that team, and that's it. And you get a series, right? Or at least a series that happens on that same day. So with Envy, I feel like that's what happened to them. Like they went in thinking that what they do best, what has been super successful for them so far, and unfortunately X6 looked like they were ready for a lot of the things that they did. I mean, the Sombra was very much less ineffective in that series than we've seen, and on some maps even cost them, I would say.
Well, I would just note to complete the FGC analogy there, there's like two sides to it, right? Is that if you're throwing out something that's not your main look to catch people off guard, you also have to be prepared to swap up to what is your main look once they have figured out what you're getting through, which, in this case did not quite happen. Yeah,
like mid-game or something like that. Okay, just kind of rounding out the results. LW Blue ended up taking care of Conbox 3-1. Fairly, I think they handled them. It was to be expected. So nothing really surprising there. AFB ended up beating Meta Athena very handily. Like that. I think some folks, maybe a lot of folks, experts, weren't too surprised, but I don't know. I still think beating Meta Athena, easily is something to talk about.
The thing with Meta Athena right now, I think, is that they are not. They were really good last season, but they're really, really, really struggling against the dive. So I kind of saw it coming. Also, people are kind of underestimating AF Blue.
Absolutely.
Like I've heard from Rogue as well, who've been in Korea way longer than us, is that I think they said that they thought that was the strongest opponent out there. So their coordination is so good. Like realistically, you have just an insane amount of really good dive teams in Korea right now. And I think even the result after that, where Kongdo Pantera beats Lunatic High, with Lunatic High not putting in Who Are You, it's just questionable in my eyes. But Kongdo Pantera also has an insane DPS duo. That's people expect Lunatic High just to win this season, but I actually don't think they will win this season. I think it's gonna be. I mean, they could. What they have speaking, I mean, they're really good. And you have AF Blue is really good, W Blue is really good, Conde Patera and Lunatic High. Only Lunatic High kind of always seems to power through in offline events. So that's, I don't know. I mean, they'll probably, I think this is probably the hardest season to call yet. Who's going to win?
One thing I'll note about Meta Athena and why it probably should be that big of a surprise also is that even going back to week 1, they were definitely a little bit more tortured coming into the season. So, I mean, and this really struggled to gather a sense of dominance all throughout. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, obviously no one's out of it here just yet, but I don't know. There's very little that surprises me in Overwatch as of late. I feel like one thing that we've sort of shifted away from on all sides is the idea of just having one superpower team where, I mean, Morte, you know it better than anyone else, back in the early beta, et cetera, you did have a very distinct tier 1, tier 2, et cetera. And now it just feels like no matter where you're looking at, things have very much been crushed together.
You can, I think there's a lot of in the EU and in A and even in Korea, you just have teams who can take maps and even matches from each other on any day. I think that's good. You don't have these superpowers anymore, so I think it's going to equalize even more. The closer we get to the Overwatch League, the more teams are I mean, rosters realistically are still going to shuffle a lot. And I think it's going to, if you have if you have so much talent, there's so much talent in this game. And the skill ceiling even hasn't been reached yet at all, I think. So, it's going to be interesting to see.
You mentioned the change to benching Who Are You and putting Guido in there instead. That was odd. I was really shocked that they would do that. Who Are You is, I mean, a lot of people could argue who the best Genji is in Korea. Who Are You is definitely in that discussion. So,
yes. So
that's strange.
The funny part is Guido was actually doing really well. He even pulled out the Genji himself, and he was really doing well the first few matches. But the last map, it kind of fell off. I didn't watch the end part, but I just read it, and they said he threw. So I don't know how true that actually is. I would have to rewatch it, but it's
when you say so throwing, I mean, we do have the best example of it in Genji in the last monthly melee, but
well, okay, sure.
Tiny bit of shit.
Yeah. So with Lunatic High, I feel like Lunatic High's, it's the same. It's historically they've just been that team that when they bring it together, they're the best team. But they have their moments where, Eska blowing himself up with, pulse bombs like he did, and just not the top level play. I mean, just not top play, from their players.
That's
Then
not what you want to do when
yeah,
Twitch chat is already spamming Escalul. So.
yeah. So
yeah, Twitch chat is, you don't
But
want
he
to
was
give
actually
them.
playing. I think he was playing really good today. So I mean, that stuff just happens. I mean,
Yeah.
it just happens. Like
I know, but whenever they're playing well, those kind of things don't happen. And they're able to just be in sync, and that's what's kind of exciting about Lunatic High. You don't know which one will show up, from day to day. So unfortunately, today against Kondu Panthera, they got rolled over, but we'll see. I still think it possibly is the finals, happening early, but how does it work? How does it work with the groups? How does it work with the groups? The top two goes through, or just the top team goes through? I forget.
In the Apex, no, you're not. Or what? What are we talking about?
The groups
Apex,
in Apex.
No, it's like double elimination group.
Yeah, it's double.
Oh, okay, yeah, because it's just listed as
but
a group.
Still
That's
only.
I got confused. Okay.
Well, you don't have a group like.
Yeah, it's like a mini bracket. It's a mini bracket.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a
That's why I was
semifinal and then.
confused.
Yeah.
And thought you were referring back to contenders because Apex
Yeah.
is just in a double limb setup now. The only thing that has groups is contenders. and
Yeah, I
that's
was just calling it groups. Yeah, it's just. I think when I was looking at it and how it's listed, it just looked like a group. It's really just brackets on both sides. But
Yeah.
so we could see that rematch definitely. So, hopefully we will. I still think those are two of the best teams. And playing this early is kind of sucky. I hate seeing the two best teams play like in the semifinals. Whenever that happens, it's always a little underwhelming. Okay, well, that kind of wraps up the Apex segment here. I do want to remind folks that we are available, or the overview is available on iTunes as well as Google Play and SoundCloud. So if you like to listen to podcasts on the way to work, or just on your iPhones or working out or whatever, you can definitely find the overview there by searching for Overwatch podcasts. And if you want to help out the show and just have like a few minutes, you can go and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, and that again helps folks find it whenever they're searching for it, just because SEO and all that good stuff. So yeah, I appreciate the folks that have done it, and we'll try to give you a shout out if you have. All right, the news, we got a list of a couple of news. Actually, we talked about the Dafran thing already. So Fnatic ended up deciding to drop their Overwatch roster, and that's we alluded to some like Tempo Storm picking up Rafflegator and things like that. Well, Fnatic decided to step away from Overwatch, at least stepping back. That doesn't mean they're leaving forever, but at least for now. And unfortunately, that means dropping that entire team. I think we kind of knew this last week when we talked about Fnatic just very, very briefly. But any thoughts on this? Fnatic's always been one of the better teams, and I mean the roster has a long history just in Overwatch and beyond Overwatch. But what do you think about this?
I mean, as far as it goes, it's just a case where they were stuck in a rebuilding stage for quite a while. There's a lot of talent on that roster. There's two parts. It's both the roster itself, which decided not to stick together and go their separate ways before contenders, and then it's also Fnatic dropping the roster. So I'm going to attack the roster part first and then the organization part. But
Sure.
From the roster part is that what it came down to is that you really need an excellent tank player right now, particularly someone who can play a really good Winston. And they needed a really good support, and finding people to fill those particular roles to really round up what they had was difficult. And they basically spent like 2-3 months trying out different people in those roles, and they weren't able to find it. And sort of fatigue took its role. The people on the team felt like, well, we're all really good players. We can find our spots on other teams that currently have those roles filled, rather than just sitting here and hoping that we find the right tank and right support. So that's kind of what happened behind the scenes for them in regards to this. And they do have a lot of talent. I don't know exactly why Fnatic did what they did as from the org, but the most I could say is that it's just the idea that if your org isn't getting top 4 results reliably, to the idea that even if you didn't want to go all in on Overwatch League, you could still sell the roster. They weren't doing well enough to probably justify keeping it on for the idea of reselling it, would be my guess. But I don't even know if that's true. That's just my speculation.
Yeah, so I mean, I played for Fnatic like before, so I know like how the organization works. Like the roster-wise, I mean, they're all individually pretty good players, but like not together or something. That's always how it felt to me. Like for example, I've been playing against Kumet for years, like in other games as well, and like I just know a lot of them are like, I don't know. I think this is just the best way for them to go. Just try out. Like you can have 6 of the best players in the world, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. So you just have to separate to see where it goes. Like you can have, if you never have like I don't like, they've always been around. They're like, yeah, I don't know. They've always been around, but never really reached the top. And I think that's problematic for also team morale and stuff. And like for Fnatic, they probably didn't. They saw that as well, plus the looming Overwatch League, and I think Fnatic is a really conservative org. So I actually do not see them buying into the Overwatch League like instantly, in my eyes. Like they'll just see what goes on, and then if they want to get in, they can just get in. They'll just buy a good team. Like that's the thing. Like I don't think like rosters right now are. Like they don't mean much to these big orgs. That's
well, they might as well wait and see.
Anyone. Yeah.
I totally get you. I mean, we've seen it, right? We've seen some long-standing brands take a step back, in the last month of Overwatch, and I think we will see that. And the Overwatch League is going to start, and it's going to start with X number of teams, and it's going to expand from there, hopefully. So they will have opportunities, whether even just to buy existing slots or there'll be new ones opening up. So no rush for some of these guys, don't have to be the first ones in there. But another, I guess, a bit of news is that Tempo Storm announced that they signed Beast Halo and Rafflegator, and they part ways with their existing manager/coach, Novex. So, Rafflegator, was a coach. Was he coaching while you were there? I forget.
No.
No, that was a long time ago, right? That was like
no, but we never really played Overwatch for Fnatic. We played for them before in different other titles.
Oh,
but I know, like Rafflegator has been around for, like, he probably is the first Overwatch coach.
I think he was. I think officially he was the first Overwatch coach.
So to give you Rafflegator's history as far as that goes, Rafflegator goes all the way back to old school IDQD, where he was involved with them and all the rest. And up until the point where I think it was Mendo and Tvik that ended up leaving that team. I think Ruffle ended up leaving them somewhere along the time frame. I don't know if it's directly related, but eventually he ended up getting involved with what would become the core of the Fnatic roster, and that's how he got involved with Fnatic. So it wasn't like someone that Fnatic brought on specifically to go coach Overwatch. Yeah. He got involved with the Fnatic core of players and went in that way. And as far as Tempo Storm saying, I know Ruffle's a good guy. He spent a lot of time coaching and, recently had to go through, he's done a lot for the Fnatic team, even working through some, pretty rough personal times. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said for the guy's work ethic. So I'm happy to see him get the opportunity. I can't really say too much one way or another on Novex. I'm not that close enough to the situation, know what was working, what wasn't working there. I will say that Tempo as an org is definitely much more serious in recent times about really getting the right players on the team and putting together the best possible team, where it's no secret that they've been more aggressive in trying to build a more competitive Overwatch roster. So I would not expect that to change going forward, where now they're adding in Beast Halo and Rafflegator, but if they don't get the results they want, I would expect Tempo to make more moves. So it is exciting to see them put more money and effort into Overwatch as it is right now.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. And another bit of news here is we have just some owner-investor type of news. We've got Jeff Vinnick from or better known for being the Tampa Bay Lightning's owner, just the hockey team. Well, he's joining the investment group that's invested into Team Liquid. So there's a lot of speculation about maybe a team in Tampa now too. I mean, there's a lot of people in that group. So I think it could be very, very just various cities. But
Team Liquid can just pick.
I know, right? It's just like, okay, who wants it? Like, which of these guys, want to have their home cities there? But what it means though is just more money, right? More money going into this investment group that's backing Team Liquid. So it's good, right? It's good news. Team Liquid obviously in a very great position to be a part of Overwatch League, and this just helps that. And then the last bit of news we've got is something for E3, which is that the U.S. and Canadian World Cup teams will be revealing their rosters on Thursday, and it's going to also be precluded by a show match between the two. So kind of a publicity type of event, and given it's at E3, it's obviously pretty huge. I'm going to actually be there. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to attend the show match necessarily, but I'll be at E3, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see at least some of the festivities there for Overwatch. What do you guys think? Just the team reveals and then having a show match after that.
I think it's a good PR thing for the game as far as it goes, where you're getting it out there at one of the most watched events in the world of video gaming, period, not just esports, but video games. I mean, you need only look at Twitch and how all the coverage has gone for E3, where it's just dominated. I mean, it's going on right now. Not to say leave the stream or anything, but E3 is clearly a big talking point, and why not promote the World Cup there?
Yeah. What do you think, Morte?
I mean, I think it's the perfect venue to do something like that, and I mean, they don't really have anything big to announce. Maybe, who knows? But yeah, I think it's very good, and I think it will just add hype around the World Cup. I mean, last year was already received really well. I think it had pretty good viewership and stuff, so I think this year it will be even better. And I mean, this year the competition is also gonna be I mean, you actually have a lot of countries who have a lot of good players on them, so it's gonna be really interesting.
Well, I can't wait to see who's actually on the team, because we've speculated for weeks and weeks now, obviously, at least the American team. So we'll finally figure it out. Jason's still in the chat. Obviously he's going to be there, and just all the whole committees obviously will be there for both teams. So
I will say I feel a little bit bad for Kai though, because Kai is going to have to it was a case where I heard that this is happening. It's like, okay, surely you're not going to fly Kai out there and back, because he obviously has to work with Envious for what's going on Apex. But no, Kai is being a soldier, man, where he is flying out there for basically one day, and then flying all the way back, and that's not a short flight. However, maybe the secret story there is that it's not just Kai being a good soldier. Kai just wanted to go up a status tier, whatever airline he has frequent flyer miles with, because hey, that is a fringe benefit.
One step closer to that gold card or that platinum card or whatever it is, right?
That's how I'd be viewing it if I was Kai. Right now.
I haven't flown once with the same airline yet since I started playing Overwatch. So.
Oh really?
Okay, so that is
how many frequent flyer accounts do you have
like
then?
3. Yeah, it's actually a disaster. It doesn't work.
Okay, Morte, that's part on you though. Like I will tell you that I've been mostly successful, aggressively talking to orgs, going, look, I want to fly on this airline. It's one thing where you will get a little bit of give on. I mean, from time to time. I don't know. I'm not saying you'll always be successful, but feel free to just really go out there when they're asking for details. Be like, look, I really want to fly on this. I have status on this. This is something you need to be just aware
I'm not worried, man. We're gonna have a private jet with the Overwatch League anyway. So.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Dream big, as far as that goes. I approve.
All right, we got some email questions from a few of the viewers and fans out here. We got Jay Torres. He's got a couple questions. Of course, the obligatory question about female players here. I've only been in the esports scene for Overwatch, so I don't know if this is for most games, but I was wondering why there isn't any female players on pro teams. So I guess we answer that question first. I mean, there's just not as many female players, I think, in the competitive scene right now. Just purely a numbers thing. And I mean, even World Cup, didn't we just see one female player the entire World Cup last year?
There was. I mean,
Team
female Zarya player in Korea,
but that wasn't World Cup. But that was.
No, yeah, but I mean, I don't really have a reason. I think the only reason that's maybe a bad reason, but I think in general, just guys are just more competitive in nature. So, for me, I started playing games when I started playing games when I was really young. But when I started playing games on computer for real, I was bored within a week from just playing public, and I just started looking for the team already and started playing matches. Just because I don't know. I just don't think it's fun not having any competition.
I think it's somewhat of a complex question to answer. I'd say probably easiest thing to look at is the numbers thing that you're mentioning, Chairman. The way I always try and describe it is pyramid theory, right? And this goes for also explaining differences between regions and going, well, why does this one region have way more skilled players in general? Is that, you take a look at it where for maybe every 10 average players, you get one good player. Then for every 10 good players, you get a really good player. For every 10 really good players, you get an amazing player type of deal, where the more players you have to form the pyramid, the more skill tiers you're going to get. And obviously, between the two genders, you do have a lot more men playing over women. So if you subscribe to pyramid theory, that alone would pretty clearly stack the deck a lot more towards the favor of men just on numbers alone. But I mean, it's a very complicated question where there's a lot of theories.
There's other elements too that, I mean, for this, Jay Torres has obviously not been in other esports scenes, but there's a lot of dialogue also just about the environment that's there, even just for female players. I mean, they are treated differently from the Twitch chat and other things, no matter if you agree with it or not. The reality is that if you're watching Twitch chat and there's a female player that's on a team, you will see just very inappropriate things that, if that person is watching the Twitch chat, it's not a fun thing to have to deal with. And I've talked to female players or female gamers that are extremely talented at whatever game that is and are definitely pro level, and they just don't even want to bother because it doesn't make them happy. It just adds stress to their lives. So there is an element of that too. That is across all of esports. That's not just Overwatch. And like ZP said, it's a long discussion, and unfortunately we'd have to have like an entire episode on it. We don't have time for that right now. But his second question is, do you think it's better to be good at a lot of heroes or to be a specialist, like more of a flex player? And we had this conversation a little bit about Tavik, right? Is it good to be well-round jack? I wouldn't say jack of all trades. I mean, I think you have to be more than jack of all trades. You have to be a king of all trades if you're gonna, whatever you're playing, you got to be super, super good at it. Yeah.
I think right now probably every player needs to be able to play at least 2 heroes in the team, and you probably need one guy who can play like 6 or something. So I think realistically, it's better to be a one trick for most people, but you do need one guy in the team who can. I think and it's probably for us, it's Cruz and Amphix flexing the most. So it's it has to be your Genji and your Soldier pretty much who have to play everything. I mean, in this meta, you don't really want your Tracer to swap off ever, I think. Yeah, I mean, Zen is not gonna swap, or he can swap to Ana, but that's not really gonna change anything too much. So I don't know. I think it's better to one trick and be really good than to be okay on a lot of champs.
Exactly. CP?
As far as it goes, I mean, clearly, if you take a look at the competitive scene, you've had one tricking has been very much rewarded, where you have a player that gets incredibly good at one hero. Oftentimes, the DPS heroes are the flashiest, and they do incredibly well with it. Versatility, let's put it this way, versatility is important to have, but if the versatility means that on your DPS, you're running a player that's like an 8 out of 10 on something when the other team is running a 10 out of 10, and the meta lets them run their 10 out of 10 DPS hero against your 8 out of 10 in every game, well, you're probably going to get steamrolled. So I would say this is that I think versatility can be very good, but if your versatility is coming at the cost of running someone that's significantly weaker than a counterpart on the other team, it's not going to end up well for you. So we are in this period here where more and more time gets spent on Overwatch as we go forward, right? Which means people are building up more and more skill. We're sort of in this in-between period, I feel like, where the people that have just gone out of their way to say grind Tracer like their life depends on it and put in way more hours than someone who tries to be a jack of all trades, well, their Tracer is going to be substantially better than most people who have tried to do a bit of everything. And they're getting rewarded for it right now. As you go forward in the Overwatch and people get more time into the game, more ability to perhaps extend out their skill base, maybe you have a case where versatility ends up being a bigger deal, but it's hard. I think Morte is more on the track here where you do need some people that can swap off because there are minor adjustments meta-wise, but you absolutely do need superstars and particular heroes, especially if that hero is critical to the current meta.
I'm going to go, I guess I'm going to go even further and just say that the time where, versatility, meaning like being able to play a bunch of different characters out, can even the value or just the evaluation between a player and somebody who's a specialist, that time is dwindling down. I think eventually it's just going to be gone. Not to say that you can't be good, like you can't be like a 10 out of 10 at multiple characters. You know, if you are, your value is obviously, you know, more than the guy who's only good at one. But for the most part, I think if you're a specialist, these teams are going to have more than 6 people on the roster. I think this is just the beginning. People are going to start building rosters of 9 and, you know, maybe even 10. So literally you could just have a Genji specialist, a Tracer specialist, you know, a Winston. And that's how I see Overwatch in the future. So, you know, my answer would be just be a specialist. Like that's.
So I don't think I actually don't think like a super stacked roster with like 9 people is the way to go at all. Like,
oh really? Okay.
No, like I think 7 is probably the max. Like the whole thing about Overwatch is that you need to flex mid match.
Oh, okay.
And
sure.
mid map.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I think you need to have people who are good on that. Like honestly, yeah, I mean, having a really good Genji, you can probably like flex out, but I don't think like 9 man. I don't think you can like have 9 one tricks and just put them on the map. But because even like for example, I'm gonna take let's say root for example. Like you can dive on the first stage, dive on the second stage, but like on the third stage, diving, if you get stopped there, it's not that good anymore, I think. So then you would have to swap, but it's not like we're gonna have 9 PCs and then you can just turn one off and then put the next guy in. Like
okay, sure.
And that would be interesting, though, is if we ever did get to the idea where you could swap mid-map. Because I do think there'd be something cool about the idea of being able to swap there. But as you mentioned, you do start to get into logistical areas there just within a current gaming arena where, well, forget the part where you have to fly everyone out there, but now just do you have to build booths to accommodate that one team that has 10 players? I mean, maybe.
No,
but it seems very far off, to say the least.
Yeah, but even like... I also think you will get to the unfair stuff where teams will just buy out every good player who are really loaded and
yeah,
I don't know. I actually think Blizzard should just force 6 people, like 6 plus 1. I mean you're gonna need a sub, like stuff can happen, and I think that I think a 7-man roster is the way to go, and I think that's very realistic. But I don't think I actually would prefer more not even being allowed at all.
Okay, so you think that you'd like to see Blizzard put a restriction on roster size? Okay, yeah, I think that would definitely give a lot more value to the people that can play, you know, multiples. So that'd be interesting. All right, Douglas I says, "Hey, ChanManV friends, I'm a big fan of the show. Listen to it every week. If it wasn't for your show, I'd never keep up with Overwatch esports. My question is, we continue to see the meta change over time from Beyblade to Death Ball to Triple Tank, I guess, and Quad Tank, and now Dive. My question is, what are the contributing factors that help shape and change the meta over time? Is it just the hero changes that Blizzard makes over time, or is there more to it?"
Well, certainly I would say that balance changes are a huge part as to why things change. I mean, obviously you look back to things like the Beyblade meta, the part where you got speed from being nano boosted was very good. The combo with a Reaper, it made Reaper a spinning top of death that came in from all sorts of angles, and changing that definitely hurt Reaper and pulled him out. So things don't happen into a vacuum. I would note that the hero changes in terms of that a hero can also be improved and be used in the meta just because a hero that competes with him gets nerfed down. Like, to give you an example, is that when you have a McCree nerf come in that makes him less viable, suddenly you have a reason to run a soldier. So it's not just changes directly to the hero, but changes to competing heroes that do it. Then there's also just the idea that people also realize that heroes are better than they give them credit for. Well, again, I'll use McCree as an example. I remember before McCree was really getting heavily used, back in the era where you had like double McCree, pre-no hero limit, etc., he wasn't used for a really long time, and it just sort of came up from the idea of people realizing, wait, this hero is really good, we can do this. So I would say maybe like 70% of the meta at times is decided directly as a result of cascading changes from a patch, but also sometimes it's players just figuring something out and that having drastic effects on the game as well.
I mean, yeah, I like 100% agree with that. I don't really have anything to add. That's basically like you just have the meta shifting based on the patches, and then you have teams like finding out. Like, I mean, the meta still has to be like discovered by a team at some point, and then people start. I mean, Reaper Ana is also something that someone started rolling out. And probably, I mean, if you're really smart, you just keep that secret and just only use it in like E-League out of nowhere. Like, but that's not
It
really
only
like,
works.
yeah, but honestly, like at some point, I think stuff like that will happen. Like, you're going to be like, oh, that's actually very strong. Like, if we have more heroes as well, like, we're going to see combos that people, like actual combos that people are going to try to hide if it really works.
I totally agree. I think the only reason why you don't see that happen more here is that, I mean, you can comment on this a little bit more, Morte, but I always tend to feel like Overwatch players right now in particular, there's always this sense of impending stress where everyone wants to put out the very best results, not only in tournament day, but on scrim day as well. I mean, I know certainly in the West, teams get pretty down to the dumps if they have a day of scrims where they just get throttled by everything. So if people do get something in the back pocket, if they're not already winning every game without it, they're generally incentivized to bring it out ASAP. But of course, that will proliferate pretty quickly if people realize it's effective.
All right, so last question from Squid Squatter. What do you think would be the best way for a new org to come into the scene? Would it be hire a coach and let them build a team from a large amount of very talented free agents, or pick up an unsponsored team and try to coach them and maybe try to upgrade in a few roles? We seem to see evidence for both being good ways to build a team in the NA contenders. So he's talking specifically about, I guess we've seen it in the NA contenders. So yeah, you guys are a GM. Let's say a team hires you today and they say, hey, go get me a team. Like, what's going to be your approach to doing that?
I'd probably buy out a solid core from somewhere and then add free agents to it. I think it's like a mix of both is probably the best. Like, a new team is like good because you can still shape it completely. Like,
yeah.
For example, it's like it's gonna be really hard for if you buy if you get a complete team, then it's really hard to get like the atmosphere and like the like a lot of teams make the same mistakes over and over again, and I think that's just human nature. People do the same stuff all the time. I mean, you'll see me just suiciding sometimes because I think I can boop someone off the map, that kind of stuff. But like, I think if you have a new team, it's easier to make like to start off fresh, But yeah, I think still you need like a strong core and then you can add to it. It can be like a DPS core, it can be like a support core, but I think you need to start somewhere. I think it's really hard to like throw 6 free agents together and then hope that it works.
Yeah.
So I think hard is the right word of choice here, is that I think the right way of doing it is incredibly difficult and success is hardly guaranteed. I do think there's a lot of merit to the idea that the way that Overwatch teams should be done going forward is that you have a coach who is the boss, the coach that is able to have authority over the players, make roster changes as needed, and go from there. You're not going to have an empowered coach if you pick up an existing team of 6. Now, the upside is that if you pick up an existing team of 6, that's a known quantity already, right? Where you know that you're going to be getting a pretty high level of performance, assuming that you pick a team that's been doing well. But in terms of your options going into the future of really retooling that team, getting the right results, making sure that your coach is able to do what he needs to be able to do, that's going to be more difficult. And it's very easy if you don't have the right personnel, the right coach, the right person to guide it, to end up in a TSM situation where you're just like trying out different parts and you don't have the expertise required to really lead it properly. So really, you can make arguments for both ends. I would say if you have faith that you have picked up an amazing coach and he's the guy that you want to be able to build it, I think you definitely build the team from scratch. If you're looking for instant results and something to maybe slowly build upon over time, but realizing that's going to be harder to get a coach in, you probably just pick up a team wholesale.
Yeah.
Both approaches can work. I think one is substantially harder than the other, and the one that's harder probably has the better long-term results if you do everything right, but it also has way more risk of catastrophic failure.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, thanks to Jay Torres, Douglas, and Squid Squatter for emailing in. And again, guys, if you want us to read out your email on the show next week, go ahead and email the overview at ChanManV.tv, and we will definitely do that. But that's going to be it, guys. We're going to wrap things up. Morte, yeah, thanks for hanging out with us. I mean,
No problem, man. It was fun.
Yeah, it's one of our longer episodes too. So, we talked a lot about.
I'm hungry.
You're hungry? Exactly. It's late over there, but again, we appreciate it. You want to do any shout outs before you take off?
I mean, shout out to eUnited for sure.
Where's that cap? Where's that cap?
Oh yeah.
There it is. There it is.
This looks really bad, but anyway, yeah. Shout out to the United. I mean, they believed in us when we were like reforming and stuff, and thanks to everyone. Like, we have an amazing fan base out there. Like, I see Reddit flares like all the time, and it's just amazing to know that there's so many people who support us, and even through our worst times. So now we're doing good again, so maybe we can put some results on the board and make everyone happy.
That's right. Starting this weekend, right? Or at least continuing this weekend, because this past weekend, you did really great. ZP, shout outs.
I mean, shout outs for me, aside from Morte for coming on the show. Always a pleasure to talk with you. And we've known each other for way too long. Like, me and Morte actually know each other going all the way back to Firefall of all games.
Oh,
so
wow.
It goes way, way back when I was actually playing as opposed to just casting. But no, it's always good to catch up with Morte. Definitely big shouts to everyone on the production staff for OverView Contenders, everyone I cast with. That's going on there. Definitely check out everything that's going on this weekend, because we're just at the beginning of Overwatch competition here, and things are going to get even better as time goes on. It's going to be exciting to finish out the month. It's going to be exciting to finish out the rest of the year. So definitely give that a look at. And yeah, I mean, shout out to you guys for listening in to this entire broadcast.
Yeah, thanks to everyone for watching, obviously.
Yeah, and I'll round things out. Thanks to both of you guys, ZP and Morte, for doing the show with me today. All of you guys for watching. I know there's a lot of E3 stuff going on, so thanks for the folks that did tune in. And you can watch the episode if you missed any of it on youtube.com/ChanManV a little bit later. That's where all of our episodes are. You can look at some of the old ones that we've done. You can also find our show on iTunes and SoundCloud and Google Play a little bit later tonight too. I'm going to be at E3, flying out tomorrow, and I'll be there until Friday. So come and say hi. We'll be doing, obviously the Overwatch thing is going to be happening, so I'll probably be over there at some point with a show match. But I'm also doing Streamer Showdown on the Twitch stage, 4 o'clock Thursday. So we're gonna have some of the variety gamers on there and DJ Wheat hosting. So come and say hi. I'll definitely be there if you wanna, just come and see me. But that's gonna be it though for the overview this week. So for Morte, ZP, and myself, ChanManV, we'll see you next time. Later.
Bye bye.